So when it comes to relationships, right, a lot of people struggle with interpersonal relationships, getting their needs met in a way that works for everybody. It's a tough one, right? And my view on why it tends to be such dicey territory is because a lot of us, right, most of us have had relationships that have been painful, right, that led to pain in one form or another. It's a territory that can be fraught with frustrations and disappointments and really just not feeling fulfilled, right? The promise of relationships, right, intimate relationships, are that, our needs are going to get met. We're going to feel seen and heard and understood. And when things are going well, relationships can be an incredible source of joy and happiness and satisfaction, right? But for so many of us, that's not the case, right? Instead, we struggle, we don't feel fulfilled, we're lonely, even when we're with others sometimes. It's like all of us are walking around gun-shy, right? Wary of a repeat of negative experiences. And that erects barriers, because the currency of relationships really are feelings. When we're blocked in our feelings, right? When we have these walls up, then how much satisfaction, right, can you really get out of your relationships, right? Not very much, typically. Instead, on the one hand, we yearn for, we really want to feel connected and close, right, to get our needs met. And yet, we have these shields, right, that block our feelings, that block other people from getting too close to us. And so we're really sort of cutting off the very currency of relationships, which are feelings, right? The very vitality, the very blood of relationships, the connective tissue of humanity, our feelings, our emotions. That's how we connect. The tragedy is that in our very efforts to avoid pain, we usually compound the pain and we create a lot more misery than has to be there. And so when we're blocking our feelings, then we're not letting people get close to us. We won't get close to others because there's that wall. Another thing to look at, I think that's worth examining, is what we think of as feelings. A lot of us, when we think of our feelings, we're actually thinking of anxiety, right? And avoidance techniques, right? Ways of managing and avoiding anxiety and feelings, right? Feelings become a miserable affair at that point. Why would you ever want to get in touch with your feelings, right? If you think of feelings as this awful experience of anxiety and ways of trying to distance and avoid, right? That's a miserable ball of wax. However, when we surrender to feelings, true feelings, not these avoidance patterns and anxieties that are really just how we react to feelings, but when we get underneath all that, right, and it actually acts as our true feelings, right, the lifeblood of relationships, the currency of relationships, then they don't last that long. They come like a wave, they wash over us, and 9 seconds or so later, give or take, they're gone, right, and then another feeling. And then life starts flowing, okay? But when we organize our life around avoiding feelings, what could be a 9-second affair could become a 9-hour affair, 9 days, 9 weeks, 9 months, 9 years, a lifetime of just avoiding what could have been a few seconds, just allowing a natural, honest human emotion. And so that's what a lot of us are up against. That's what a lot of us are dealing with. So one thing is that we live in a world where people are people, right? And so from one perspective, there's always going to be some measure of frustration and aggravation when it comes to human relationships. That's just a given, okay? But what therapy tends to look at is that extra layer of pain that we add to our lives, right? The unnecessary pain, the avoidable pain. So there's a measure of pain that comes from humans being humans and relationships being what they are, that we don't have any control over, right? It's life. But then that extra layer of pain, and right, that is what we do ourselves, right, that make it worse than it has to be, right? More aggravating, more frustrating, more agonizing, more lonely, right? And so if we look at that, right, a lot of what tends to get in the way for people in terms of getting their needs met relationally are ways of blocking and tuning out emotion, right? Of erecting these psychic emotional walls and barriers, right? We're shaving away at the very connective tissue of what bonds human beings, right? A skilled psychotherapist will be looking at how you are in relationship with the therapist, right? Because that'll tell me something about what you're dealing with outside of the office with other people, okay? And by actually addressing, in real time, what you're doing, what the client is doing relationally, how they are with me and so forth, that tends to shed a lot of light on what you do, right, to block yourself from experiencing the kind of joy and satisfaction that you could be getting, right? Any therapy that aspires to help you enjoy your relationships more, where you get more of your needs met, would be well served by helping you look at, right, what's blocking you, right? What's blocking you from just having your feelings, right?